Okay, so you'll see from my presentation, I'm sharing here with Alyssa Kekana. So we want to talk about online learning, especially focusing on multilingual tutorials. So that will be quick. So I will share the first part, 7 minutes, giving a student lecturer perspective, and then Alyssa will also share, giving the student perspective, and then we will just briefly talk about our two questions that we've posted. So as the slide will be downloading, I just want to say to us that, look, I know COVID has presented a challenge to most of us. You know, moving online, especially emergency remote learning, has created much challenges to lecturers, especially, you know, all of a sudden teaching fully online, and that was not an easy thing. But on the other hand, I think the main challenge was with regard to multilingualism, how to accommodate multilingualism online. Most of the materials were, of course, lecturers had their materials on both languages, but to really facilitate the learning, to do that online, that has really posed a number of challenges. So I've just decided to share not exactly what really happened, because I was not necessarily teaching, but just to share my broader experience.
Mbulu, you have frozen on my side. We can't hear you. Maybe you just want to restart. Alyssa, are you still, can you maybe take over?
I can take over, Antoinette. It's just the PowerPoint isn't loading, so I'll go ahead and speak. Let me just put on my camera. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Alyssa Kekana, and the way Prof Madiba and I really wanted to structure this is by, going into our understanding of multilingualism, sharing our experiences, obviously from a lecturer's point of view or teaching point of view, and then from a student point of view, and then just providing recommendations on how we can go forward. So I think I'll go ahead in, discussing what multilingualism is in my perspective. And, it's the use of multiple languages, but specific to ARTLA, it's the use of multiple languages in teaching, in learning, in assessment, and in engagement, which is one of our main focuses today. So we know that this creates quite a dynamic environment. So yes, the student experience, during online learning, the main platforms that, was used by students would include, Sunlearn, and then Microsoft Teams for your live lectures. And it's a pity that the PowerPoint isn't loading, but I included in the PowerPoint, how Sunlearn looks, and there's an option for it to be translated into Afrikaans, but it only provides those two languages. And that essentially is bilingualism and not multilingualism. So something that we need to encourage is how we can develop the systems that we use to, accommodate more than just the two languages, but to accommodate accommodate much more. So with Microsoft Teams, because it is, a live platform, and it's been excellent today, I must commend people who have been providing the translations. But in lectures, because it is a live platform, it's very dependent on translation services. And if you do not have access to that, it's a bit of a struggle. And a lot of the times the slides are shared in both English and Afrikaans, but that's where it ends. So if you miss something important that hasn't been included in the slide, it kind of, seeps through and you lose that information. And again, a pity the PowerPoint isn't loading, but I included not a service, but one of the functions of Teams rather, that is, live transcriptions. So how can we use that function to provide translation to students? Because it transcribes as the lecturer is speaking. So maybe that can be extracted, properly translated, and then provided to students, so that if information isn't included in the slides, students won't miss out on that. So I also just wanted to share my experience of online learning as a whole. So during my first year, I was heavily dependent on the translation services at the university, so with the earphones and just listening in class. But when online learning came, I was really, yeah, I felt very much at loss because I was so dependent on that. And now I had to suddenly just find my own way to keep up. And for me, at first, it was a very daunting experience, but I decided to look at it as an opportunity for growth. So I, gathered different resources. What do I need to translate this? Okay, I need to maybe bother my lecturers a bit more. So start sending those back and forth emails requesting for translations on certain things, but really having a positive outlook and not just, not just looking at it as a negative situation. So through this, I found it as an opportunity to grow. And yeah, I was encouraged to find really innovative ways to navigate through this. But yes, I also wanted to speak on the effects of a multilingual environment. So we know that multilingualism really provides for a dynamic space, as I said. But when it comes to engagement, students can often feel reluctant to engage because, don't necessarily buy into it. So I think we need to really start in encouraging our peers to really buy into the idea of multilingualism, but then also, discussing the benefits with them, discussing what the benefits are of multilingualism in online engagement. And I think another thing, just a recommendation, is just the university providing better resources for students, because it was also mentioned in our introduction that Prof Madiba will share, but we also spoke about how students really had to take agency in, especially in peer tutoring. So a lot of the time students were, taking the onus on themselves. Translanguaging was very active because students in their class engagement would really be cognizant of the fact that not everybody understands the same language and we don't have translation services. So how do we work around that? So I think, again, just encouraging multilingualism, allowing students to just buy in, but then providing the proper resources. So that is from my side. I will hand over to Prof Madiba.
Thank you very
Thanks, Alyssa. Thanks
thanks
to
so
see
much.
you back, Mbulu.
Yes, I'm back. Yeah, thank you very much. I think the system put me out, but thank you very much for keeping the lifeline. So I just give briefly the lecturer's perspective. I think Alyssa has just given you the student's perspective. But you know what I've discovered during my course of promoting multilingualism is that students are themselves a resource when it comes to multilingualism. Because a university like Stellenbosch has got students who speak nearly all the languages, more than even the 11 that we have. So the university has to find a way to make use of this resource. And we found that, when it comes to tutorials, the students are the best really people to do that. So what we can do when it comes online is to create the platforms that students can be able to use, when it comes to that. When I was at UCT, we had different platforms that were developed. For example, the Vula multilingual online learning environment. You can see it allowed a whole number of, you can to use multilingual there, online, especially when it comes to concept literacy. That is for example, the students will really go into that, because the challenge that students always have is really when it comes to concepts. They can understand some of the things. When it comes to academic language, concepts becomes very, very difficult. Students will tell you that we do understand the concepts, but we don't get them. So I initiated a concept literacy project at UCT to support students for whom English is not their mother tongue. And then we use this on Vula online platform, which hosted a number of glossaries. So everything is integrated in that. I know Aanlyn also has got some other features, but I'm not presenting it because I haven't used it. So we have our Mobilex and so on and so on. But if you have got all these kind of online platforms, this can really help students, in learning online. So you are catering study X, that students need to do. Then, of course, for example, I'm just giving an example there. Students can find the definitions there. That was on Vula. But now these are the kind of tutorials that can be set, because it's not just a question of uploading the thing. You can also put activities online platform, ask students to define certain terms, help them to do certain things, and so on, so on. So, but where we found students to be very, very useful, I mean, that is, I'm just going to jump all this other. If you want really to understand where the pedagogy of using online platform, you can read my paper there, promoting concept literacy through multilingual glossaries. So then you can look how you can do that. But I just want to show you the video which really clearly shows how you can use translanguaging in tutorials, because that is, many people have asked that we don't know how you can use translanguaging. So this shows you how you can use translanguaging in tutorials here. Okay, I'll stop my presentation there as we wrap up. I just want to explain the concept of translanguaging, because many people will say translanguaging is fanaka law, you are just going to, there's no academic language. And going back to the point that Professor van der Walt indicated, academic language is nobody's home language. What you have been hearing there is economic discourse. That is how you speak economical. That is the economic discourse. And that discourse is neither, it's Xhosa, it's neither English, it's a discourse that students are using. So that is what we talk about. When we talk about translanguaging, we are talking about an academic discourse that draw on different linguistic resources that students have. So that is the point that I want to make. And then another point is that students themselves are a resource. So those students are discussing economics. They are using, that's what Alyssa was saying. We need to really make our students as a resource, use them. We can record, we can upload things online. They can do tutorial peer-to-peer. When students are talking to each other, they use different linguistic resources. They don't really use the so-called standards that we always push for, but they use what they can use. So I think briefly, that's what I can say. I don't know if Alicia wanted to say something there, but then I wanted us to talk about our 2 questions.
Yes, thanks, Prof Madiba. I was just about to go on to our 2 questions.
Yeah.
So the 2 questions Prof Madiba and I, presented or put forward to you all is, one, just providing recommendations on how Stellenbosch University can improve the use of interpreting or translation in online classes, and how translanguaging can be developed in online classes, and just going back to what Prof de Villiers said, it is a collaborative approach. So again, just focus on how everyone can do their part. And then the second question is, how can students be more innovative in the use of multilingualism for peer learning? So again, referring to the various platforms used for online learning, but also informal platforms where peer tutorial takes place. So yes, those are the 2 questions that we posed, and yes, we are looking forward to what comes from the discussion.
So thanks very much, Lisa, for that. And I think that's quite fascinating. So I'm looking forward if we can really, develop e-tutors. E-tutors are very, very productive, because each e-tutors, you can have a kind of a database with e-tutors that shows their language proficiencies, that they're competent in maybe 3 languages. And then if students have got a problem, then they can approach those e-tutors, so that they must really download concepts in their own linguistic. So like you've seen, these students downloading economic discourse in their own, it's Xhosa mixed with, it's Xhosa English, explaining all those kind of key difficult concepts. So I think that's all that comes from myself and Alyssa. So thank you very much. Okay.